Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we have the latest from the live radar. Run for the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we have had some quite severe thunderstorms during Monday afternoon. They are starting to fade now, and the rest of the week is looking pretty dry indeed. Temperatures will remain fairly warm for the next couple of days, but there will likely be an easterly breeze setting up as we head towards the latter part of this working week, and for some that will mean temperatures will start to dip. Now, we're not looking at anything particularly cold, but just a little bit more in the way of cloud, and the temperatures dipping perhaps back down into the high teens, just about 20 degrees across central parts, and maybe some western areas could hold those low 20s, but not quite as warm as we've seen over the past few days, but regardless still being a lot better than what we can see this time of year. So we can't really have too many complaints. As we progress into the longer range, still looks fine and dry for the next week or so, but still rumblings of lower pressure returning as we do progress into the final third of May, gaining a bit more traction today than it has over the past few days. So perhaps are we finally seeing a proper change coming? And of course, with warm air around at the moment, there is the risk of further thunderstorms as we progress into the final third of May. But there are even some runs that do produce more deeper low pressure systems that wouldn't just be thunderstorms and showers, but would actually be longer spells of rain, wind and colder temperatures. So we'll explore that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy the video, make sure you like and subscribe. Now, if we do start on the live radar, you can see through to this afternoon we have seen some quite severe thunderstorms breaking out across many central and western parts of England and Wales. The remnants of these thunderstorms now are drifting into the Irish Sea, losing their intensity, and we're not really expecting much activity throughout the rest of the evening, or really the rest of the week. But if you were out and about in that area in the west, then would have heard some big rumbles earlier on and some torrential downpours in quite a few spots. Quite a few did see at least some rain, as I said, locally was really quite severe. Now, if I do put on the 2 metre temperatures this evening, you can see further eastwards and northwards where we've avoided those storms, temperatures once again into the mid-20s. A really toasty day today, and that did add fuel to the fire for those thunderstorms. And you can see towards sort of Oxford up towards the West Midlands, that is the sector where those thunderstorms initiated, even down towards London before they have spread through Wales. So you can see the slightly colder corridor, that's where those big thunderstorms had taken off. So another very warm day where we avoided that. And the warm conditions will continue over the next couple of days before eventually that easterly breeze will start to pick up. Something else we can have a look at is the past 24-hour precipitation, and this is for all those showers and storms. You can see they're all heading from the southeast to the north and the west. And you can see the track of some of these storms starting right on the south coast, this individual storm, before heading through Reading up towards Wales. And again, you can see some darker yellows and greens, again indicating where storms were pretty stationary, or at least storm built into the similar track of a prior storm that cleared through, giving big accumulations to precipitation. So most saw a pretty decent downpour, and you can see a few saw some really severe conditions, all in that corridor covered by the Met Office warning. So pretty horrible conditions out there earlier on, but it has now all cleared. You can see parts of Northern Ireland to see some really heavy rain as well last night. Again, that was all due to an area of heavy rain that developed across the Irish Sea. Again, quite a lot more activity than initially anticipated, but you can see where all this heavy rain has occurred. To the north of that, where we've seen beautiful blue skies and sunshine, been very warm today, and you see that over on the latest top temperatures from Net Weather. You can see most 24 to 26, a 27 in Blackpool, and a 29 in Lakenheath Royal Air Force Base. We've seen this a couple of times throughout the spring. Lakenheath does sort of climb a little bit higher than the majority of other stations, so I have got some doubts over that, so we'll ignore that for now. But most 24 to 26, that is the top temperature, so very similar to Sunday. Very warm, but a pleasant warmth. It's not too oppressive, just very nice and toasty. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see all those thunderstorms early this afternoon, really at their peak intensity around 3 or 4 p.m, losing their intensity through this evening and really coming to nothing as we head through Tuesday morning. Into Tuesday afternoon, there's a risk of a few more thunderstorms developing across the far south for a time through Tuesday afternoon. But again, they don't look too severe, perhaps an hour or two of proper thundery activity before they do start to degrade away, all due to the remnants of the instability associated with that low pressure system that has given those thunderstorms today. As we progress into Wednesday, though, look at the wind direction. It goes to more of an easterly. Now, we don't really shift air masses, but with that wind coming in off the North Sea, it does allow a cold layer of air to develop at the surface, drifting in off the cold sea surface temperatures. And it just means that there's a bit more in the way of some thicker cloud and just generally slightly colder conditions. You see that cloud building overnight, retracting away, getting burnt away during the afternoon. So a pretty standard easterly flow for this time of year, but with warm air aloft, hopefully the temperatures won't be too bad. Now, to look at the temperatures this afternoon, as I said, mid-20s in those northern areas that avoid those thunderstorms. Into Tuesday, very similar again, where you avoid those showers in the far south, you could see once again 25, 26 degrees. However, as we head into Wednesday, look at the far north and east, more towards the mid-teens as temperatures start to cool down, still mid-20s further westwards. And for Thursday, we're all starting to get affected by that easterly breeze. Right along the east coast, could only be 12 or 13 degrees. Drift inland, high teens or touching 20 degrees. That's the most likely temperature. So quite a bit cooler there on Thursday. Still very pleasant, still average to slightly above average, but just not quite as warm as that sea breeze starts to develop. Into Friday afternoon, very similar, a bit warmer in the west, but still chillier in the east. And that pattern continues into Saturday, with the best conditions across the Republic of Ireland, furthest away from that North Sea wind. You can see over the North Sea temperatures are only 8 or 9 degrees, so it's still pretty cold out there. And as soon as we drift inland, those temperatures will start to warm up. So the best conditions will be out in the west. We can see why that's going to occur, because if we look at the latest pressure charts, you see the low pressure system out towards southwest at the moment, that's developed those thunderstorms. High pressure going to rebuild, but it's going to rebuild slightly to our north, which allows that easterly flow. That keeps some chilly air drifting in off the North Sea, but again, we're not expecting anything too major. There is the risk into early next week of some slightly lower pressure, some upper troughs developing. That could give some showers and some thunderstorms. And eventually into the final third of May, look at this, some quite deep areas of low pressure drifting in off the Atlantic. And it looks really unsettled there for a time. So again, we'll have to see how that does develop. But yeah, it looks pretty horrible indeed from this latest GFS. But again, we'll wait and see. We continue to see this on those long range charts, but as I continue to say, it never quite comes to fruition. So perhaps could this be a bit of a step change, because we are seeing it from similar runs as well. We can see that from the GM. Again, high pressure in control, that easterly flow with some potential troughs developing later on into next week. And then eventually at day 10, look at this, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. Again, high pressure still blocking towards Greenland, so this could be a cooler and unsettled pattern starting to develop. So again, not the same as the GFS, but a similar sort of breakdown starting to occur. And finally, if we look at the latest ECMWF, broadly again, very similar. We see slightly lower pressure starting to develop early next week. Starts to turn a bit cooler as well, and eventually the high pressure does lose some of its strength. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going very unsettled at this point. It still would be warm and dry, but it opens the door for low pressure to rumble back in off the Atlantic. You see the main high drifts back to the Azores and the Mediterranean, leaving this flimsy high pressure system behind, which would likely get beaten away by a low pressure system coming in from the north or west. So again, we'll have to wait and see, but definitely opening the door to something a lot more unsettled there as we head into the final third of May. Now, to finish by looking at the latest ensembles, these are the latest GFS. You can see over the next couple of weeks, generally slightly above average temperatures, around 2 or 3 degrees above average for the foreseeable future, with generally very dry conditions for at least the next 7 days, maybe the next 10 days, where eventually showers do return. It does look like some quite big spikes, some frequent spikes starting to appear there into the final week of May, and the upper temperatures return back towards average. So a stronger signal once again today for more unsettled conditions. So again, we'll have to wait and see if that does come to fruition, but definitely a strengthening signal today. If we look at the 2 meter temperatures, dipping slightly this week with that easterly breeze, but they will recover hopefully into the weekend and start of next week back towards the low 20s. But again, we're not expecting anything probably above 25 degrees at this stage. Generally 20 to 25 will be the top temperature most days, so pleasantly warm. If we do finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, you can see again, broadly very similar upper air temperatures remaining a few degrees above average for the foreseeable future. Some slightly cooler runs starting to appear then to the final week of May and starting to turn more unsettled as well. We'll have to wait and see exactly how this does develop over the next couple of weeks, but for the time being, do enjoy the warm, sunny, dry conditions. I know we're not even in summer yet, and it might feel like this is going to be it now for the next 3 months. Doesn't always play out that way. There's a small chance this is it, and we've been for a historically warm and dry, and probably potentially drought summer, but most likely we will see unsettled conditions return. We'll see more thunderstorm outbreaks, more widespread severe thunderstorm outbreaks, and yet we'll all be at that point wishing we're back in this period. So do enjoy the next week to 10 days. Perfect conditions for late spring, and yeah, we'll have to see what happens into the final week of May, as it does look likely now unsettled conditions will at least have an attempt at returning. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.